Sheila Banks here with another video, and this one showcases pictures I took while in Jamaica on a recent trip. I hope you enjoy them. And this video is called Beating Down Babylon. It was only when the taxi driver dropped me off at the base of the mountain did I realize what I had agreed to. If I was to fulfill my mission, I would have to ascend a steep mountain. So, determined to reach the School of Vision Rasta camp, nestled high in Jamaica's Blue Mountain, that is just what I did, huffing and puffing all the way up. I stayed there at the guest house for a week. That gave me enough time to interact with community members and to attend their Saturday worship service. I also had a short reasoning session with Dermot Fagan. He is the visionary who 25 years ago claimed squatters' rights on territory in the Blue Mountain. Since then, he along with others have transformed this rugged land into a habitable village for Rastafarians. Upon entry into the village, it is apparent that the Rasta camp is more than mere housing for those willing to climb mountains. Depictions of Ethiopia's Emperor Haile Selassie, along with selected scenes from the Bible, decorate the buildings, and a pedestal-like monument showcasing a picture of the emperor is strategically situated for all to see. These Rastas are devoted to Haile Selassie, and as I pointed out in an earlier blog post and accompanying video entitled Natty Dread Rise Again, they are justified in their adoration of this emperor. During my visit to Jamaica in 2015, I presented to a group of Rastafarians in Kingston. Since, I have received even deeper insight into the Rastafarian cause. So I felt compelled to return with the hope of passing on my more recent Rasta apologetics to as many Rastafarian elders as possible. But I never thought that mountain climbing would be part of the deal. I discovered information that linked the bloodlines of the European royalty to Nephilim, and that explained a lot. Nephilim are the product of the mating between some kind of non-human species and Homo sapiens. The Bible portrays them as violent and predatory, just like we see with the European royalty. The kings and queens of Europe were on one conquest after another, looking to grab other people's land and resources. The partitioning and the looting of Africa is the perfect demonstration of how this predator class has operated. Put simply, the rulers of this realm have inflicted great trauma on most of the aboriginal populations of the earth. In the name of colonization, these so-called elites have been brutally acting out their predatory nature. And this is the world scene in which Haile Selassie was installed to become the Emperor of Ethiopia. When I say installed, I am not referring to the political interference of a three-letter agency. No, I am talking about the movement of the Almighty through a human as a corrective measure. Selassie was unlike the royalty of his era. His bloodline could be traced to the house of David. He was not descendant of Nephilim, and his actions proved it. He was not interested in looting Africa like the monarchs of Europe. He was a true human who wanted the best for his people. In fact, he wanted the best for humankind. By the time Selassie had arrived on the world stage, Africans had been through a lot. Economic exploitation and events engineered to traumatize folks into submission were all done in the name of colonization. Religious missionaries even got in on the act. Every region of the African continent, except Ethiopia, had been taken over by the Europeans, and these psychopathic rulers were hell-bent on snuffing out Africa's ancient ways. But Emperor Selassie was having none of it for his country. Selassie had arrived at just the right time to ward off the takeover of Ethiopia by these forces of evil coming out of Europe. He fought off the invasion of Italians and defended his people as best he could. Not only was Selassie a defender of his ancient kingdom, he was a custodian of his faith too. His ancient brand of Christianity positioned him to become a beacon of light and truth for the traumatized and downtrodden. This human king offered practical advice and spiritual guidance meant to uplift and empower. Meanwhile, far from Africa, in the Jamaican diaspora, talk of repatriation and Pan-Africanism was in the air. Marcus Garvey was a prominent voice in Jamaica, and he went about championing for the dignity and rights of Black people everywhere. He wanted them to have their political and economic independence. And he saw in Selassie a major African head of state on the world stage who could help bring that about. One of Garvey's followers took this interest in Selassie even further. Leonard Howell, like Garvey, was concerned with socio-political conditions for Blacks, and he wanted to see the end of colonialism. However, Howell added a spiritual dimension to the cause with his declaration about the emperor's divinity. Howell knew the Almighty Creator as a living God operating in the world. For Howell, Selassie was like Jesus in that he embodied the Christ, that active aspect of God working in and through a human to impact our species' history. Jesus was about the salvation of humankind, and Selassie was too. And both knew that a leap in human consciousness is the way to true redemption for our species. But the emperor's role in that salvation involved championing for the birthrights of the Black race. Finally, there arose on the world stage someone to advocate for Blacks. Unfortunately, Emperor Selassie could not wave a magic wand to bring about instant justice and harmony for the Black race like some had fantasized. Nevertheless, he delivered a powerful message of hope to Blacks everywhere, which reinforced the Rastafarian movement in Jamaica. For those early pioneers of Rasta, Black empowerment was not just about equal rights and justice gained through the courts. A sense of dignity based on self-mastery had to be affirmed by each individual. Colonizers had convinced many to believe in the Black race's inferiority, and the programmed captives needed to eradicate this negative self-concept through a process of self-development. What started out as opposition to soul-crushing colonialism morphed into a spiritual revival like no other. For some, this emphasis on self-mastery led to the acquisition of unity consciousness, and that is why the reference to one's own self as I and I. Through music, Rastafarians have been able to amplify Emperor Selassie's wise advice for obtaining Black man redemption. But the impact that Rastafarians like Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, and so many others have had on the collective is indisputable. They called out the oppressive power structures promoting inequity and exploitation. Rather than blame a nebulous power called Satan, they named the perpetrators of evil in this realm, with the royalty of Europe along with the Vatican being a major component. God really does work in mysterious ways. In the final analysis, the rise of Haile Selassie birthed a political, spiritual movement. Rastafarians have had a huge impact on the consciousness of humankind because of their devotion to the Emperor Selassie. However, another blessing came about through this emperor. He prevented the takeover of Ethiopia and protected his ancient brand of Christianity. Ethiopia has played a major role in preserving the Book of Enoch. This scripture has been excluded from Christian biblical canon since the 5th century and was considered lost until late in the 18th century when a complete copy was discovered in Ethiopia. The book is part of the canon used today by the Christian Ethiopian Orthodox Church and is of great interest to humanity. It is helping to clarify what the ancients knew about the parasitic class who have been ruling over our species for at least 6,000 years. Who knows what would have happened to that information if the Vatican, through the Italian invasion, had got a hold in that kingdom? Today, more and more African states are working to shake off the yoke of imperialism. They want to be free of the parasitical psychopaths who exploit them. Although Muammar Gaddafi was prevented from delivering Libya from the clutches of these evil ones, Niger has made the bold move to get France out of their country. Geopolitics is shifting, and Africans have the opportunity to ally with anti-imperialist forces like BRICS. Those early pioneers of the Rasta movement believed that Emperor Selassie's coronation marked the beginning of a new world dispensation. They expected the dismantling of old world power structures and the ascendancy of the black race to be the next installment of the human story. Isn't the recent geopolitical shift a sign this new configuration is in the works now? No doubt, freedom from the evil rulers of this world is going to require our tenacity and self-mastery, and an evolution of human consciousness is what is needed. As Haile Selassie aptly noted, we must become members of a new race. We must become bigger than we have been, more courageous, greater in spirit, larger in outlook. And from my perspective, sometimes even a little mountain climbing is called for.